Are there places inside us that we can't find on any map? Places made of feelings, thoughts, and memories? Did Carl Jung, a famous psychologist, warn us about the dangers of these internal places? Did he say that these places can slowly harm our soul? Are they not just bad habits or mistakes, but real mental areas where we can lose our clarity, dignity, and direction? Did Jung believe that suffering can help us grow? But did he also warn that some suffering can turn into self-destructive places from which we can't recover? The first is the house of denial, where the shadow is rejected. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." In Jungian psychology, the shadow encompasses everything within us that we refuse to acknowledge. Our anger, envy, selfishness, sexual desires, fears, traumas, and even buried talents and potentials. It is not inherently evil. It is simply unknown. Denial, therefore, is not just a refusal to face external truths, but a rejection of parts of ourselves that feel inconvenient, shameful, or dangerous. When we deny the shadow, we become puppets to it, acting out passive-aggressive behaviors, sabotaging relationships, projecting flaws onto others, or lashing out emotionally. Jung warned that the unconscious will direct your life, and if you live in denial, you see distorted versions of everyone, but never yourself. Building a home in denial is like living in a house of mirrors, distorted reflections of reality, leaving us blaming others and reenacting unhealed wounds. Facing the shadow requires courage, the willingness to look inward, to ask why we feel jealous, angry, or resentful, and to understand these emotions rather than suppress them. Only then can we stop living a fate dictated by unconscious forces and start living our truth. The second place is the swamp of resentment, where pain is never transformed. Jung believed suffering, when examined consciously, could lead to profound transformation, but when buried or denied, it ferments into something darker. Resentment is pain that has turned into poison. It's the story we tell ourselves about being wronged or betrayed. The longer we dwell in resentment, the heavier and slower everything becomes. We carry old wounds as part of our identity, saying things like, "This always happens to me," or "They'll regret how they treated me someday." In this state, we are not healing, but hoping our pain will vindicate us. Resentment never punishes the offender. It punishes us. It closes us off from trust and love, turning us bitter or cold. Jung emphasized that true forgiveness isn't about excusing harm, but about breaking the chain of suffering, reclaiming energy from the past, and making meaning from pain. When caught in resentment, pause and ask, am I feeding this pain or freeing myself from it? Because the swamp offers a place to lie down and drown in misery, but true healing requires us to step out and transform that emotional lead into gold. The third dangerous place is the prison of guilt and shame, where the self is condemned. Jung distinguished between guilt, acknowledging a mistake, and shame, which says, "I am the mistake." Shame is insidious because it whispers that we are unworthy, unlovable, unfixable. Those trapped in shame often appear functional, working, smiling, achieving. But inside, they believe they are fundamentally broken. No achievement feels enough, no love is deserved, and forgiveness from others cannot penetrate the walls they've built. Shame disconnects us from our own soul, telling us that we must become someone else to be acceptable. Jung believed that true healing begins with self-acceptance, not perfection. We must confront our inner judge, question whose voice it is and where it came from. The shame we carry often originates in childhood, religion, trauma, or comparison. We can choose today to unlock this prison, not by erasing the past, but by refusing to let it define our worth. Our mistakes are not our identity. Our past is not our destiny. The soul's natural home is growth and freedom, not guilt and self-rejection. The fourth place is the theater of persona, the social mask we wear to navigate society. Jung introduced the concept of the persona as the role we present to be accepted, admired, or protected. While necessary for functioning, dwelling in the persona is dangerous because it causes us to lose ourselves. When we start to perform rather than live authentically, we begin to forget our true desires, pains, and creativity. We dress, speak, and act not to express who we are, but to maintain approval. Over time, this masks our true self, our desires, chaos, and vulnerability, pushed into the unconscious, leaving us feeling exhausted, numb, or depressed. Jung warned that the soul does not thrive in pretense. To become whole, we must face the risk of rejection, remove the masks, and reconnect with our true voice. This process, called individuation, involves reclaiming our authentic self and living in alignment with our inner truth, even if it means risking societal approval. The fifth dangerous place is the labyrinth of overthinking, the mind as a trap. Jung warned that when the mind disconnects from the deeper self, it becomes a maze of endless loops, analysis paralysis, and noise. The mind's brilliance can turn into a prison of rumination, where thoughts chase themselves in circles. We try to solve pain with logic, control the future with prediction, or undo the past with imagination. But this only distances us from clarity. Jung emphasized that healing and meaning often arise from the irrational: symbols, images, feelings, silence, and intuition. In the labyrinth of overthinking, the heart and soul are silenced. To escape, we must trust our instincts, our inner knowing, and be willing to act without every answer. Wisdom lies in knowing when to stop thinking and start living, embracing the metaphorical language of the soul rather than the language of the rational mind. The sixth place is the desert of isolation, where connection is feared. Jung understood that the soul heals in relationship, yet many retreat into a psychological desert, an empty, dry, safe space where they believe they don't need anyone. This solitude may feel empowering at first, no expectations, no betrayals, but it eventually turns into exile. The silence becomes unbearable, and vulnerability is seen as weakness. Over time, emotional guardedness and skepticism of intimacy grow. The true issue is not others, but the parts of ourselves that feel unworthy of being seen. Jung reminded us that we are wounded in relationship and healed through connection. Standing in front of another with honesty and imperfection is vital to becoming fully human. Living in isolation means missing the sacred friction of connection, the chance to be known, to love, and to grow. The seventh and final place to avoid is the graveyard of the past, where the present is abandoned. Jung warned against clinging to guilt, regret, nostalgia, or grief. These are the places where one becomes a ghost, reliving wounds and trying to resurrect what has already died. The mind replays what could have been. The heart clings to what was lost. In this space, the present blurs and life stalls. Wholeness can only happen now, in this moment. Letting go does not mean forgetting. It means honoring the past without letting it define us. Learning to say goodbye to old heartbreaks, betrayals, and versions of ourselves that no longer serve is essential. When caught in the graveyard of the past, pause and ask, what am I keeping alive that no longer belongs in my story? Grieving and forgiving are necessary, but living fully requires us to step into the present and embrace who we are becoming. In summary, Jung's teachings guide us away from these 7 places: denial, resentment, shame, the theater of persona, overthinking, isolation, and attachment to the past, and toward the inner landscapes of authenticity, acceptance, connection, and growth. Only by venturing into the depths of ourselves with courage and compassion can we find wholeness and true freedom.